Hey guys, this is AC Lockyer, and this is Building a Lifestyle Business. And I've got Sheamus with us here, Sheamus Parish, and you are up in the panhandle of Florida. Tell us who you are, what the name of your business is, and just a little bit of background on you and your wife and your family.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, AC, thanks for having me. Looking forward to this conversation. A little
Yeah.
bit about me. I'm Sheamus Parish, born and raised up here in the local Pensacola, Florida area. We're way up as far northwest Florida as you can get without being in Alabama. Uh, Howard Partridge calls us Lower Alabama, LA, you know. But my wife and I just born and raised here in this area. I went off and did some time in the Army a long time ago, and
hmm
we moved over to Louisiana after we got
Thank
married.
you for your service, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
My wife and I, after we got married, I came home, met her. We moved off to Louisiana for a number of years so I could go to Bible college. We picked up a couple kids along the way and found ourselves back here after about an 8 year run over there. And we've been back here ever since. This is home. We built right next door to my wife's parents, my in-laws. She's an only child, my wife, Crystal Parrish, and we've
hmm
got two great kids. Kaylin at 13 and Ethan is hitting 12 here in about a week.
Wow. Yeah. So yeah, the Panhandle of Florida is really, really nice. And for those people that haven't been there before, certainly you have all the beaches and everything, but there's a lot of woods up there and a lot of hunting and a lot of fishing. And we were just showing pictures of, you've got a bass on the wall there in your office, and I've got a bass on the wall here. And the natural state of up there in the Panhandle of Florida is just really, really nice. But it's really growing up there. It's unbelievable to watch.
Sure is.
Yeah.
It's wild. We're what we grew up here in sleepy Pensacola, which was always kind of a tucked away couple hours to the west of
Mhm.
Destin, which has always been the big go-to place. We're seeing rapidly grow into a destination, not just for vacations, but permanent residence. It's wild. We're over 500,000 people now, population as the statistical metro area, as they call it.
Sure, sure. Yeah. And so also too, you guys have an air base there, correct?
We've got several. That's right. We've we're
Pretty
known as the home.
famous, pretty famous group comes out of there too.
That's right. We're known as the home of or the cradle of naval aviation.
hmm
The Blue Angels fly out of just down the road. They're over our house all the time. We may even get interrupted today because I can't control what they do when they buzz up.
Yeah, we had we're on Lake Jessup here, not my house specifically, but my neighborhood is. And right across Lake Jessup is the Sanford International Airport. It's one of two international airports that are in Orlando. And every year they have the air show there. And the Blue Angels were there, and just all kinds of people come in for this thing. And so they're always flying over the lake, and they're buzzing by our house. And, just you hear them. I mean, even inside your house, it shakes things a little bit. You're like, oh, yeah, it's that time of year. It's the air show. And so I can just imagine being there all the time.
Absolutely, it gets wild. But we just found out this. I think they just announced last week that this year's homecoming, what they call the homecoming show every year, the Angels go out to the West Coast for 6 months and then come back here for 6 months during winter.
hmm
And they just announced when they come home in November, they're bringing the Thunderbirds or whatever the Air Force calls their stunt
Their
flight
version.
group
Yeah.
with them, and they're going to be part of the home show, the homecoming show. So we're going to have the Angels and the Thunderbirds from the Air Force doing their stuff. It's going to be
Wow.
a pretty wild show. First time I think they've ever done that. It's going to be incredible.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, I really I have an appreciation for that because both my grandfather and my uncle were Air Force pilots. My grandfather actually they're both fighter jet pilots. And my grandfather was in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And then my Uncle Bud was in Korea and Vietnam. And so everybody just assumed that I was going to end up being an Air Force pilot. And I grew up just building model airplanes and everything. But yeah, no, my grades weren't good enough to, of course, go to officer school. So
Of course.
those dreams died with me having legacy in that. But I've always loved the aviation and especially fighter jets and the prop jobs like the P-52 Mustangs, the P-38 Lightnings. Those are my two favorite prop job planes, and just it's cool being there. I bet you guys have some great museums and everything there as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So you're in Pensacola. You're not in one of the biggest cities in Florida, but it is a big city for the panhandle of Florida. And you do have quite a population there. And so after serving in the military and then going to ministry school and doing things that you did, you found yourself at a place that you decided to become an entrepreneur. And so I always like to ask people, what got into your mind? What sparked? What was the reasoning why you decided to give up having a job and become an entrepreneur and start your own business?
Yeah. Mine's a little bit of a different story, I think. I don't run across them too often, and I run in some circles of a lot of circles of entrepreneurs. I've always been the guy that was just, frankly, trying to survive and live what we call a countercultural lifestyle. We're that modest income, single income family. My wife, when we had kids, Crystal, we decided we wanted her to raise our kids and school our kids and all. So that meant I had to carry all the water. So I just started doing side hustle stuff, to my main career, which was heating and air. And, I'd started that way back before we even got married. And I just always kept something, some sort of something on the side to help offset the lifestyle so that she could be at home. And the latest iteration of that was I had a lady ask me to pressure wash her commercial building. It was a very small, back in 2018. She was like, we just already had sort of a friendly relationship with some work I did for her. And she said, "Hey, could you pressure wash this building?" And I thought about it for a few days, and I said, "Yeah, buy me a pressure washer and give me X amount of money." I don't know why,
but yeah, sure,
water,
I can pressure wash your building. You got a pressure washer?
That's right. I'm like, I don't even have a pressure washer.
That's right. Sure. Yeah.
And I booked out a Saturday for us to do it, and it was a nightmare. My buddy sold me this long giraffe neck thing for pressure washing 20 feet in the air.
Yeah.
And I came home after 13 hours, and it was a nightmare. I was like, nah. So I moved on, but I did that, and I was like, there's got to be something to this. So I dug into it a little bit, and I started washing for a side hustle. And then in 20, the pandemic happened, and I lost my day job. They furloughed me. So I was one of those people that my niche in the heating and air world was specifically in restaurants. So when they shut down all the restaurants, they shut us down. So I worked for a large manufacturer at the time that serviced just the restaurant HVAC portion. And I got furloughed, so I just leaned into this. Thankfully, I just met and got on in network with you guys and leaned in. It was never the plan to be an entrepreneur. It was always just something on the side to help pay for vacations and stuff. But that kick in the teeth in 20, where the company took my income away and my livelihood and told me you hear it every now and then, I was no longer essential.
Right.
Was like, I don't like that. I think I want to make a run at this on my own since I have to anyway. And after the pandemic kind of wound down, I found myself surviving and figured I'd just keep going with this rather than taking that position back with a company that wasn't there for me when I needed them. So,
sure, yeah. So you were one of the many people that got displaced during the pandemic, and your job just disappeared. You certainly, HVAC, even if you weren't in restaurants, was still going inside of people's houses, and people were very uncomfortable with people going inside of people's houses. And yeah, for us in the exterior cleaning business, we were exterior, and it seemed to be a boom for us, but we sometimes forget there were people that really suffered during the pandemic, and their jobs just dried up.
That's right.
So okay, so you're I wouldn't say you're an accidental entrepreneur. I mean, you were definitely doing what a lot of entrepreneurs do. You, for whatever reason, the job that you had either wasn't fulfilling or wasn't working or wasn't monetizing or dried up. There was that loss there, or you knew that you had to do something else. You had already been doing it somewhat as a side hustle. And so you were making some extra money, like you said, paying for the vacations. And so when the world just stopped spinning because of COVID, you had something that you could kind of roll into. You kind of waded into being an entrepreneur without realizing necessarily that you were taking this huge risk, and it wasn't this overnight shift. It was, you had a side hustle, so you had something, like you mentioned, to survive on, to sustain yourself, to, to exist on. And then you realized, well, I could probably do this full time and double down on this and dig into it. And so when you realize that, what was the mindset change that you had to go through? I know you probably sat down with Crystal and you guys had some discussions and you talked about it, and you're leading that, what I call the upside down lifestyle. It's completely different from the world. I mean, we talked about it here. We're a faith-based business. You guys are a faith-based couple. You're Christians. You're doing things differently than a lot of people do out there in the world, because we make some different decisions in our life. So when you went to make a decision, you sat down with your wife, you guys talked it over, you probably prayed about it. And so tell me about that process that you went through, deciding, okay, this is the thing that we're gonna go for and try to make work.
Yeah. um, that's a bit of a conversation. That's a big question.
Yeah.
You're right, though. We talked about it a lot. We were well past my prime, as they say. I was already well into my 30s, heading into my 40s at the time. 4 years ago, and
Yeah.
I'm kind of broken. I've got some aches and pains that come along with living a hard life.
Right.
And we were like, I was kind of on the path to retirement with that company that I was with. I figured I'd run that out another 20 years and coast into retirement. So we made that decision to jump back in the field, and I had just heard a talk that you give, actually, that talked about you have a you disorder,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I just listened back through it the last few days in preparation for talking today, and really what it came down to was either we've got to go all in,
Mm-hmm.
or I've got to go just figure it out back in the heating and air world.
Right.
I know I can turn wrenches and make a living doing that, but I don't want to put my trust in another company. Frankly, is where it came to. I want to spread that out and make sure I've got a lot of people paying my bills rather than one guy paying my bills, because that didn't work out for me last night. And we did decide back in 20 going into this. We went out and immediately paid a bunch of people for a bunch of coaching, and we're like, we need to prepare for this. We need to self-develop and figure out what that looks like. And we bought a bunch of coaching and training, and upgraded our equipment, because up to then since it was a side thing, I was working off of a home built system. So I went out and I pulled some retirement out of my retirement account, because the pandemic allowed for that without penalty, knowing that people needed to survive, and that's what it was going to take. So I went ahead and did that, and invested that in some equipment, to buy a piece of equipment, and we just leaned in. We lived off that a little bit and hired people and started trying to grow and scale, and just listening to this is what you do mindset of all the gurus in the industry, all the guys on YouTube and the people that I was paying directly and all that. And we're like, you know what? Here we are 3 years later. We looked up at the end of 22 and it didn't work out for us.
Right.
As you mentioned and alluded, we've had our ups and downs. Here we were all but bankrupt at that point because of hiring knuckleheads and just trying to trying to follow this. We have all the systems, and thanks to you guys and what we got from Howard Partridge, we've got all this stuff. And but ultimately what it came down to was it was just needing to stop and reassess and recognize that I was listening to this direction rather than myself and direction that the Lord was giving us, because that's not what we want. We don't.
Yeah, so you can't really glance. Yeah, you can't really glance over that a lot because, a lot of these podcasts that we have is, in fact, hey, I'm doing great. I'm making lots of money. Life is wonderful. I'm hiring employees. Look at me, man. Everything's working. And it's not that way for everybody. And some people's, personalities are different. Some people's life goals and dreams are different. Some people's market is different. Some people's temperance towards having team members is different. And so you did jump all in, and you did try to follow a plan and try to follow a model and hire people and stepped out on faith and listened to everybody. And it just didn't work for you. And it had almost catastrophic repercussions. And so, because we are trying to build a lifestyle business here, there are some people that it's not always so cookie cutter for. So, go into that, because we're not going to gloss over that stuff here. We need to, help other people that are going through this and help them to find their way, because you're starting now to find your way.
That's right. AC, I really and truly want to say thank you for that. I didn't know the last few days, as I've been thinking and praying on this, what the platform you would give for this conversation would be. Because I agree. I don't want to gloss over it. I feel sincerely over this past couple of years. So we shifted in the end of 22 as we wound down the season. We shifted and said, you know what? I'm going back on the truck. I'm not hiring a bunch of people anymore. I've got to clean up this mess that we've created by hiring people and doing all this stuff that didn't want to do the right things. And ultimately, I own all of this, and we've talked about that. This is all of me. I love Jocko Willink's book, the Extreme Ownership. I'm all about it. It's on me. But at the same time, I recognize because it's on me, I get to change my mind and back up. And that's what we've done. We've spent 23 and 24 just kind of reassessing what does that look like for us and our end goals and all that kind of stuff. But the voice I think I bring to the table, honestly, after a lot of reflection, is I'm the guy that not going political, but President Obama coined the term when he was running back in 08, Plumber Joe or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm that guy. I'm just a normal run-of-the-mill guy. I think I bring kind of a 1950s era conservative Christian family worldview to life. Just look at life through that. I think that's what we're missing, is somehow the American dream, quote unquote, that started back in the 50s, 60s, has shifted to whatever this is now, where it's all about trying to be the next Coca-Cola.
Right.
But in pressure washing.
Yeah.
And I have no interest in that. I want to be the guy that runs the local gas station down the road. And when I'm ready to go on vacation, I just turn the switch off, go on vacation.
That's right.
And then whenever I come back, I turn it back on. I let my customers know I'm back and ready to work again, and they'll call me. It's crazy. You know, my customers, I've got a super loyal fan base, and they take care of me, and they serve, I'm able to serve them well, and they pay my bills. And I've got, I don't know, about 150 customers a year that I serve now, and they provide for me a little bit from each one, and it suits me. But to your point on that, I know we share kind of the poor scholarliness. You talk about a lot on yourself that you dropped out of school and whatnot, or they kicked you out or whatever it was. Similar. I joke with my wife, I never finished anything. I even got myself kicked out of the Army. I got broke and they sent me home. They're like, well, can't use you anymore.
That's right.
I had a bad parachute landing and it
Oh,
messed me up pretty bad. I mentioned that earlier, the aches and pains that
yeah.
limit the amount of want to that I have anymore, you know? Um, so like I dropped out of high school when I was 14, 15 years old and I had to petition the governor of Florida for permission to get my GED before I was old enough to sit for the exam. And they gave it to me for hardships because my family didn't have the means. So like they allowed me to do that rather than school,
Hmm.
so I could try to survive. And that's kind of my story. I've always been the guy that I'm just trying to make it through life, like not in a bad way, not in any sort of negative way, but like it just is what it is. I don't have aspirations to go have $1 million company and 15 employees and 5 trucks or any of that. It'd be nice, but I'm happy. I'm happier if my kids know who I am when
Try.
they're 15, 17, 19, 25. I'm happier if my wife is still excited when I get home in the afternoons, not mad at me for being gone for 3 days because she didn't
Hmm.
see. I
Yeah.
never want that makes sense. I hope I answered your question.
No, it really does make sense because some people, the Bible says that you have to stop and take a sober accounting of yourself. And we all have to be a newer term of sober accounting would be that you need to be self-aware.
Yeah.
And also too is for some people, they're just wired up differently. I'm go go go, take over the world, want to have a worldwide footprint and everything else. But the bottom line is, I still have only 150 customers too. Which is funny as what you just said. I just do more for my customers, but and so it's bigger dollar amounts really is all. But for me, I still want to be able to come home and see my wife and take vacations whenever I want. The dream is still the same when you get down to the most basic of dream when you're really thinking about it. But it's how do we get there, and it's how much do we want to sacrifice, and how hard do we really want to work? There's sometimes you put in too much work in one area and not enough work in the other, and then you wonder why your marriage is failing or why your kids don't know who you are, and why your spiritual life is suffering, and so not everybody can juggle all the balls. Well, most people can't juggle all the balls. I mean, if you see somebody juggling, generally there's something that's hitting the ground somewhere. It looks really good above the surface. Like if I'm juggling right here above the screen right now, I look great. But if you look down on the ground and saw all the balls that were on the ground, you go, whoa, hold on a second. There's stuff happening. And so, you just stopped and you said, I'm going backwards. I'm losing money. I'm going further into debt. I didn't borrow from my retirement anymore. I'm now devastating my retirement. I got to stop and do a reset and look at how I can do this business in a sustainable way to make money, start paying off the debt. And then once I pay off the debt, I can turn around and start saving again for retirement, because the day is going to come that Sheamus can't do this job anymore. And either Sheamus is going to have an asset to sell, and he might possibly sell the business one day, or, like you mentioned, the ages of your kids, 10 years down the road, one of your kids could be taking over this company from you. I threw up on Facebook last week, and it was an old post that I did 2-3 years back ago, where I just showed if you could build a business to $250,000, just $250,000 a year, and the business only grew off of referrals, repeats, warranty claims, like we talk about in our company, just those three things: referrals, repeats, and warranty claims. The business only grew 15% per year. You weren't trying to double or triple or throw big numbers up. You just grew 15% per year. And then what would that company be a year later from 250,000? And what would it be a year later? And I showed over a 20-year period of time, only taking that original $250,000 a year business with 15% growth grows to $3.5 million in yearly revenues. It will become a $3.5 million company. So even what you're doing right now, Sheamus, if you keep answering the phone, doing what you promise people you're going to do, okay, and keep being that likable guy that people are like, I just like Sheamus, people like Howard Partridge says, people buy from whom they know, like, and trust. And you just do the job that you promise people you're going to do, and you're reliable, your business will grow 15% per year. And 10 years from now, you'll have $1.5 million business. And 20 years from now, you'll have a $3.5 million business. And you'll probably have something that you don't have to work anymore. You're probably going to slide into maybe a sales position. And maybe your son will be out on the truck and he'll have a helper or something like that. And the business will grow organically and naturally to that point. And then, if things go well, then your kids may be able to look at you one day, hey, Dad, just go ahead and retire. We'll make the car payment, the health insurance payment. You will have saved off some money for your retirement, and you'll get to the point where you'll be able to retire just as though you worked for that HVAC company. You've just really got to plan it, put together a very strategic plan, and then follow that plan. And there's no shame in growing at just 15% per year, because that 15% per year over 20 years, over 20 years, it's $25 million in revenues that you generate.
Sure.
And so you can still, with a little $250,000 a year business growing at 15% per year, can over 20 years generate $25 million in revenues and then have a $3.5 million business at the end there. And I think that's cool. And I think that's the path that you're on now. You're just slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah, absolutely. I know the post you're referring to, and that was a real, like, I guess you'd say a blessing to you. You didn't put it out to me. You just put it out on Facebook, but we're friends on Facebook and all
Right.
that. And my wife and I talked through that, and you're absolutely right. I have a hard time with this idea of, there's this culture, I think, going on in the circles that we run in that says there's something wrong with you if you don't somehow magically turn nothing into something in 60 days. It's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
You have all these other gurus out there that are like, I'm going to launch a new $1 million business in 13 days. Watch, and I'll YouTube all of it.
Yeah.
And but how much cash did you dump into that?
Sure.
Or whatever else, whatever there is. But it's just not realistic. It's not something that I wanted to do after I really thought through it. I was just trying to follow this model, is a term we use all the time. And it just wasn't the right model for me. I'd prefer the old school, just long and slow. We'll get there, or we won't. Either way. If I shut it down at 60 because I'm too old, I'll have some cash in the bank either way. So
right. Totally.
We're good at setting money aside, and we're blessed enough that we've got some property here already, and it's well on its way to being paid for because of how we live and budget our life, and we'll be okay either way.
Have you been looking for an investor-grade home service business opportunity? Softwash Systems is what you've been looking for. Come to Discover Softwash and discover your potential. Learn how we provide you with the equipment, chemicals, education, and support for your soft washing business. For more information about becoming a licensed affiliate, call our Shield support agents at 855-763-8669 or visit our website, www.softwashsystems.com/discover. Join the revolution. Join Softwash Systems.
Cool. So you mentioned the model. So we definitely have a model here at Softwash Systems, and that model, I do take pride in the fact that if you want to have a multiple location, multiple truck empire, the model works for you. If you just want to have a 2-truck branch and take home, not have to go out every day and clean and everything else, and take home $150,000 a year, a nice small executive salary, but be completely in control of your destiny, you can have that. Or if you want to be an owner operator and just work in your own truck, you can have that. There is, from the full scale of the model all the way back to pieces of the model works. Is that what you're finding?
I think so. You've got your poster boys out there that have followed that model. You yourself are walking the investor owner model, where you've started your own branch in the last year or so. Clearly that's working. And then you've got me. I'm over here. I've been around with the the affiliate program. What start back when I started, we called it the network,
Mm-hmm.
but I've been around now for about 3 years, and I'm still just a one man show, and I go out, I do a nice living, and I provide for my family. I'm not crushing it. I'm not hitting those big numbers, but you're right. There seems to be a good process by which to go out and do all of these things. Um, I think we just need to be willing to have the conversation amongst ourselves with those around us
Right.
that that's not my goal. Therefore, I'm not going to look like that. Um, and I'm not going to need this, or I'm not going to need that, and that kind of thing. And it'd be okay. You know me, I love this organization. I think I greatly admire what you and Karen are doing. I wouldn't trade this for the world. The relationship that we all have, I trust in the direction and the processes. It just didn't work for me to grow because of me. I don't have the wherewithal for the ups and downs and the silliness that goes with having to swap out team members constantly and that sort of stuff that you talk about.
Yeah, we even had this week, we started this big apartment project, and we had a guy, an assistant tech that, we don't really hire assistant techs. We hire the next lead tech, and we put him with the lead tech so we can do cellular division and grow. We went out and started this big apartment. Apartment communities, when you do them, the first day is, getting your rhythm, figuring it out and everything else. And so they had, it was like a 14-hour day, their first day. The guy next morning, no call, no show. We haven't heard from him since. And he had been with us 3-4 months, but those easy residential days that you're in by 3-4 o'clock, those, $2,500 to $3,000 days, and, and everything that was going, he was in for that. But boy, he had one hard day. Poof, he was gone.
Absolutely.
So, for somebody that's trying to get over that hill, over the gap, get to the point where they've got enough team members that when somebody calls in like that, it doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. But when you're owner operator trying to get to owner manager, and you're trying to get to the point where you never have to get back out on a truck, man, that 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back can really get to be annoying after a while.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So let me ask you this. So where do you want to go with this whole thing? If you were to say 5 years from now, 10 years from now, where you'd like to be at, what are you trying to accomplish? What are some of your dreams that you have? Tell me, where you're going with this lifestyle business you have now, because it is a business that's starting to do well, that's starting to pay you well, that you're able to start chunking down some of this debt, put some money away, and like you said, you're not that far off from having your home paid for and stuff like that. So paint the picture of where you want to be and where you want to go.
Yeah, I sat and listened to all the podcasts that have gone before me over the last week or so, just kind of thinking about it and listening to some of this stuff. Big picture, I think we would like to have that single branch, 2, maybe 3 trucks long term, but 5 years, my goal is to be really perfected the single truck owner manager, owner operator kind of blend still. I don't see adding a couple of trucks for a few years beyond that even. We love, because my kids are still at home at that point.
Right.
Like I said, I've got 12 and 13. They'll be 17 and 18 at that point.
Right.
My kids will be old enough that they could begin starting to work for me and helping me out and learning the trade, but they wouldn't be gone yet. So I don't want to be gone yet either. So realistically, my wife and I really value our time with our family and our church. Something most people don't know about me is I come from a really, really terrible family and background. I joke that I'd have been better off being raised by wolves, So, but I do at this point, I have a relationship with my grandma, who is a 92-year-old World War II veteran.
Wow.
And she is in a wheelchair, so we take care of her, and provide for a lot for her. She lives with my aunt. The two of them have kind of been together for as long as I've been alive. But it's getting to where my aunt is pushing 70 now herself, my grandma's daughter.
Right.
So my son and I, we have to go mow the grass, and my wife has to go help bathe my grandma every week, a couple times a week. And so we just have a very full plate. So I see us over the next 4 or 5 years probably transitioning with her and losing her, and having to deal with some of that stuff. But just being able to live life as we want to live life, and not being trapped our business. Howard talks about it being a vehicle, and to help us get to where we want to be. And that's where I think I want to be over the next 5 years. You lay out in the certified applicator, and I think maybe even the authorized professional program, the process by which to, and you assume no debt, I think, as you're talking through
it is certainly preferable. Yes.
So we're working through that, but you lay out the picture of being able to do X revenue with X amount going into these different buckets using the profit first method.
Mm-hmm.
And on basically an annual to maybe, in our case, every other year, be able to just drop the money to pay for a new truck. And in the opposing year, a new skid. That's ultimately where I'd like to get to, is to where I can just have that and upgrade my equipment every couple of years and not have to worry about, like right now, my old beater truck out there. It still looks good. It's pretty, but it is old.
Yeah.
And
well, luckily you don't have to drive far. So
that's right. That's right.
I was telling somebody the other day, they were like, I just don't want to take on a bunch of debt. I don't, really want to buy a truck for cash and everything else. I'm like, well, how much do you have? He said, well, to buy my system and my truck, I've got $50,000. I'm like, ooh, that's really tight. Because trucks are really expensive nowadays. Just a brand new truck's $55,000 for the work truck package. And I said, what's your service area? And he was telling me the service area. And I went, oh, dude, go buy a 150,000 mile, 8 to 10-year-old truck. Just make sure the body looks good. It's not, remember, you kind of grew up the time where if anybody had a car that was getting ready to hit 100,000 miles, they just got rid of it because it was an American-made car and it just wasn't going to hold up, But my wife and I, when we keep our Suburbans now, we keep them till they break 200,000 miles. We put at least 200,000 miles on a Suburban. And the fact of the matter is it could probably go to 300,000, but we do start aching for, another vehicle. And we just buy somebody else's 3-year-old Suburban on the cheap. And so, but, I told him, I said, just go out and buy a $15,000 truck, go out and get yourself a $30,000 system. Now you're at 45. Said, you got to come up with all your deposits for your insurance and everything else. I said, that's pretty much going to elapse your 50 grand right there. And I said, but, buy that $15,000 truck. If you find one for 10,000, I said, man, if you clean them up really good, you slap a nice piece of equipment in the back and you put a wrap on them, nobody can tell. You just have to pray a little when you go down the road.
Absolutely right.
But those $15,000 trucks can make you a lot of money. I remember the first truck I had for my business that my dad bought for me was a $1,500 Mitsubishi was a Dodge truck made by Mitsubishi. It was a Dodge D50, which you have like 1-ton trucks, 3/4-ton trucks, half-ton trucks. This was the 1/4-ton. It was like the ones that back in the 80s, everybody bought and lowered and slammed to the ground and stuff like that. That's what I had. Long bed, regular cab, Mitsubishi pickup truck that we bought for $1,500. And hey, $1,500 and a $450 pressure washer from Sam's was the seed money that started all of this today. So, just if you can buy a truck with cash, buy it with cash. The one we just bought for our branch, we bought it 2 years old and it had 30-something thousand miles on it. We bought it for $37,000. And so,
yeah.
You look where you can to save money and try not to get into debt.
Yeah, absolutely. I would certainly I would certainly go back and heed my own advice and not go against what I already knew to be true. But again, you can't undo it. But I chose to listen to all the grow, and just nah.
Well, and hey, listen, P.S. I was one of those people telling you to grow. And that's because that's what we try to do here at Softwash Systems, and it's not for everybody. But when you put on the brakes and you tap the brakes, you said, "No, man, I got to slow this down." I listened to you, and we jumped in, and I started coaching you, encouraging you from that side, because the last thing we want to do is drive people to a place that they don't want to be or don't need to be. And so you didn't want to nor need to be there. It's easy to get caught up in the emotion of it, but I just want to commend you for knowing when to stop. And you've taken the pieces of the model that certainly work for you, and you've got the equipment, you got the chemicals, and you're molding this to what it needs to be to build your own lifestyle business. And that is really the point.
Absolutely. You're right. I appreciate that.
Well, do you have any parting words for anybody as we wrap this up and close it up?
I would just encourage those to really, really dig in and spend time. As we've talked about, I come at everything I do from a Christian worldview. So I'm going to just encourage that you spend time in the Word and in prayer, and try to make sure you are really being true to yourself and to the Lord.
Yeah.
And don't get caught up in the hype. It's easy to get caught up in the hype that's what you're supposed to do. And that you won't survive if you don't have 15 people out earning for you and you're just taking a little bit off of that. and it's not true. We do okay. We pay our bills, we're all happy and healthy, and we all know each other. That's the key. And speaking of my family,
Yeah. So, and
so
like you said earlier, if you want to take a week off, you just take a week off, and your customers will be there when you get back.
That's right.
Well, that's I guess that is the true definition of a lifestyle business.
There you go.
That's very good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Sheamus. This has been a great conversation, and it's been different. I love it when it's different, because I don't want this just come off as a Softwash Systems infomercial. I mean, I'm really trying to talk to people about why they are where they are, why they're doing what they're doing. Softwash Systems is helping them with giving them a product to sell, but it still all boils down to that we're all starting businesses to help support our lives, pay, like you said, pay the bills, take care of the family, make sure everybody, that your daughter recognizes you when you walk in the door. Hey, Dad, and you're spending time with your family. And we're just trying to chronicle these stories inside of Softwash Systems. And you have a different story. And there's going to be somebody that's going to be listening to this podcast that's going to go, Dadgummit, I am that guy. And there's no shame in saying, I want to be an owner operator. There's no shame in saying it might take me 10 years to get to the point where I have 2 or 3 trucks on the road. I don't have to do it in 2 or 3 years. I can take 10 years to do it, and it will happen organically. It'll happen naturally. But the biggest thing is, Sheamus, is you're in a season in your life when your kids are young. You mentioned you have a 90-plus-year-old grandmother, 70-plus-year-old aunt. You're helping, your aunt and especially your grandmother. There's a season in your life right now that the next 5 years, like you mentioned, are just different. And so I didn't even start blowing up this business until Karen and I became empty nesters. And so there will be a different season for you one day. And then you'll do a little prayer, you'll do a little fasting, you'll see where the Lord points you. And the Holy Spirit will give you a tickling in the direction you need to go. And then you'll go that direction. But right now, you know firmly exactly what you need to do.
That's right. You're absolutely correct.
Cool. Awesome, guys. Okay, great. So if you like this podcast, go ahead and click like. If you'd like to share it, go ahead and share it. Certainly do subscribe to it here, guys. This is Building a Lifestyle Business. I got Sheamus Parish on here, and I'm AC Lockyer, and we'll see you guys at the next podcast.